When will I finally allow myself to feel like I'm enough? Like, when will enough be enough? When will I finally be enough? And you just journal, journal, journal. Journal is a very somatic experience.
Hey everyone. So today I'm sitting with Amanda Frederick, also known as the Cosmic Mistress. So for anyone who's new here, What If It's Possible is a podcast where we're going to be exploring the ideas, stories, and conversations that really stretch what we believe about healing, humanity, consciousness, creativity, relationships, and the future of what we're here to build. It's a show for everyone who has ever looked at the world or their own life and wondered, what if there's another way? And Amanda here is a somatic guide, an intimacy coach, a breathwork facilitator, and also an evolutionary astrologer who's helping people reconnect with their body, their desires, their relationships, and what she calls the mystery of becoming. So she's really blending a lot of different works together. Amanda, it's so good to have you on the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you've all brought this all together and just more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. I'm really excited to be here. So,
Cool.
I actually started as a nurse. I've been a nurse since 2010, and I primarily worked in the mental health field for about 10 years. I worked adult psych and saw a lot within mental health, and it was a really beautiful time for me. I'm so glad that I had that experience. And then I had two kids and didn't want to go back to nursing and struggled with my own anxiety, a little bit of postpartum depression, which now looking back was more of an identity struggle, more of like, who am I becoming through this experience rather than actual depression is how I see it now. And breath work really helped me through that. Breath work was really kind of the gateway drug for me into this whole world of possibility. So I did a couple of breathwork sessions. I felt totally different. And I was like, holy shit, like I want to do more of this. And I also want to be able to bring this to more people so they can also experience like what else is possible within themselves. So I became a breathwork facilitator. And then after that, I was like, okay, I also want to go a little bit deeper. So I became a master somatic coach. And after that, I'm like, okay, I also want to go a little bit deeper into like sexuality and relationship stuff. So then I did a somatic sexology and sexological bodywork program and worked primarily with women and couples in the realm of sexuality and relationships and intimacy. And I've studied astrology since college and just recently have integrated it into some of my offerings because what I've noticed is, you know, there's a collective energy that we're all consistently feeling and tapped into. And it's a really beautiful technology that not everybody is aware of yet. And it's a tool. So I use it a little differently than a lot of people do. You know, it's not just like your sun sign or that, and that's all of you. Everyone's chart is really a journey of their soul. And, you know, we come into this world with a very specific blueprint that is our birth chart. And we come into this needing to have certain experiences to evolve and grow. And oftentimes that's through relationships. So I love fusing astrology and intimacy coaching and relationship coaching and embodiment and breathwork and all of the things, because I think that when we do that, we really can allow ourselves to come up against every threshold of initiation of like, what is life asking me to become next? Like, who am I becoming next? I think that it's a really beautiful journey, and to be able to support people through that and to have all of these tools blended together makes it much more accessible, makes it feel a little bit easier. It doesn't take away from being human. Like that's a big thing for me. Like I really love being able to showcase the human experience and how it's not easy. Like it's not easy to be a human. And also at the same time, it can be very fun. It can be very playful. And we're all in this together, right? Like that's the intimacy and that's the relational piece is we're meant to move through life together and to relate together. And that's how we change and grow and evolve and become who we're meant to be.
Well, I love that you, in your discovery of your own human experience, you ended up discovering a whole nother career. And you're not the first person I've talked to that's kind of gone through this almost like a career finding you sort of is like to some degree. And in so many ways, I feel like some people wonder why their life is a certain way or why they're experiencing this pain or this trauma. And I just wanted to say it's really amazing that you're able to turn something that was really challenging for you and actually turn it into something that is healing so many other people and helping so many other people through your experience and through your
Yeah, thank
empathy and
you.
stuff like that. Yeah, it's really beautiful. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
just give a nod for that first and foremost.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's a journey. I'm always toggling between that, like my own personal pain and my own personal experience is really what has allowed me to experience more joy and pleasure in life. And it's such a gift, and when you're in that, it doesn't feel like it's a gift, like when you're really feeling, like the impact of the things that you've experienced and trauma, and when you're really in, oftentimes the choice point of letting go is what it
Mm,
really is. Letting go of who you used to be so that you can become who you're meant to be, whether that's a career change, a relationship, an identity shift, like with becoming a mother. There's so many times throughout life that we are given the opportunity to let go, and it feels so hard. And then when we do, it's just like, oh my gosh, it opens up a whole nother world that we didn't even know existed. So I think, I've something that I've learned throughout this whole process is that's something that never ends. Like, I'm going to be on this journey forever, and hopefully supporting other humans on this journey forever of becoming, which requires us to let go and surrender and just trust whatever the next thing is.
yeah, totally get that. So for anyone who's listening or watching, what was it before your becoming, let's say, and then what does it look like afterwards, just so they know what that transformation looks like, or even if they can identify a situation with that they were in before without realizing
Mhm.
that, oh, wait, actually, I need to move through this instead of staying in place. Like, what was your before and after?
Totally.
Like, just so people know.
Yeah. So I'm still a nurse now. There's so many things. It's relationship stuff, it's career stuff, it's becoming a mom. All of those things were really big initiations for me. And before I really started moving through my own transformation, I was feeling so trapped in who I thought I needed to be for everybody else and who I thought I needed to be in order to feel safe and in order to feel loved, and what it was I needed to be doing in order to also be loved. And so there's like an undercurrent, the wound of like not enough, not worthy enough, not lovable. All of those things were really keeping me bound to the choices I was making and the relationships that I was in. So, staying in a relationship with, the father of my children for a little bit too long because I thought that's what the best thing was versus like what's actually good for me and what is life actually asking of me in this moment, and who do I need to become in order to get there? And for me, it looked like leaving a relationship that on the outside looked totally fine, having two kids with someone and doing okay financially, and being a nurse and him having a great job, and having the whole home life. I really needed to kind of like burn that whole paradigm down in order to figure out who I actually was and what I actually wanted. So walking away from that relationship, figuring out like what kind of mother I wanted to be, figuring out just what kind of human I wanted to be and what lit me up, not what was going to allow me to feel praise or validation or love from other people, because that always leaves us feeling empty because it's never quite the thing. And so I really had to learn to shift away from people pleasing and to start having boundaries and to really claim like what life do I actually want for myself. And when you start doing that, you start losing relationships, friendships, maybe shifting into another community. And for me too, it's shifted my career. And that was really hard too, because a nurse is a very like, and I still do nursing. I love it. What I do now is different, but that's a very like, it's a great job. You can get a job all the time. And I'm like, okay, but actually I would rather go down this other path of supporting people with life coaching and somatics and sexuality and astrology and all of this other like woo woo weird shit that not everybody is super into, but like I'm so lit up and passionate about it, and it's, saved my life so many times that I want to offer that to other people. But it takes a lot of courage to be willing to really claim who you are in the world and what lights you up and to just keep moving towards that. Does that answer your question? I went in some circles.
No, it's good. It sounds to me like understanding where you're not being fully, like not fully loving yourself essentially,
Mhm.
and trying to get it from other people or give it to other people instead of giving it to yourself also, or giving it to yourself
Yeah.
first and foremost. This
Yeah.
is what
Where are
I've
we
sort
not
of
being
heard. Yeah.
honest? Yeah. Where are
Yeah.
we not being honest with ourselves about what it is that we actually need, what it is that we actually desire, and where are we showing up just like on autopilot
Yeah.
because we're supposed to?
And I feel like in our culture, it's so common to be in autopilot and just kind of go in our loops over and over again because it feels comfortable and it's so normalized. But sometimes you stop and look around and you're like, I didn't even realize, I think that's the biggest part is like the realization part.
Hmm.
With your work, like going from nursing over to somatics and coaching, how does it differ from like talk therapy? That like, can you kind of just dive into that? Because I think some
Totally.
people hear this and they're kind of like, how is this going to help me beyond what talk therapy could?
Totally. Yeah. It's a great question. And I think talk therapy is great. I do therapy every week, but I work with a somatic therapist and a depth psychologist. So it's a little bit different. Talk therapy is very like in the mind. It's very talking about the things that happen to you, talking about what you're experiencing, talking about what you're feeling. It's very up here. So a somatic approach is it's bottom up. So the way that I work with people, especially when you're working with someone that's experienced trauma, they don't have to talk about what happened. They don't have to like rehash it out and give me the story. We go directly into the body and where things are living in the body. So we're finding the tension, we're finding the trauma, we're finding anything that's stagnant or stuck that's in the body and just giving it space to exist and allowing that to tell whatever story it is. And not necessarily the story of what happened, but giving it the space to express as far as like breath, sound, movement. And so when I work with clients, it's more of allowing their bodies to guide them into an opening of safety. It's repatterning their system to know that, yes, even though this terrible experience happened, we are here now and we are safe now. And it's safe for the body to open again to what's possible now. To share too a little bit with like somatic and sexological body work, which is a really powerful tool that I use with clients. We're not talking at all. I have somebody on the table and I'm just following the flow of energy in their body and finding tension, and we're breathing with the tension. If there's emotion, it's okay. If we gave space for this emotion to speak, what would it say? And we're just giving everything that exists enough space to exist that it also shifts and moves. And that's really been my personal experience and with facilitating with other people and clients is when we allow whatever happened to us and whatever we're holding in the body to simply just be there without judging it, without trying to change it, without making it wrong. We just let it take up as much space as it needs to. It actually releases. And then that's the really beautiful piece of you become so open and empty. You get to decide what you want to fill yourself and your life with next. And oftentimes it's okay, aliveness, joy, pleasure, passion. And you get to bring in those maybe younger parts of yourself or like inner child parts of you that you've forgotten about that like are so innocent and so lit up and so excited about certain things. Like you get to start to carry those parts of you with you forward. And that's the really beautiful piece that I love too, is when you do this as an adult, you get to heal those parts of yourself that experienced maybe trauma or just not great things as a kid. And they get to have a different experience now with you as an adult leading them.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is, aside from talk therapy, like you can do all of the work in the mind, but you have to eventually get to this body work
Mm-hmm.
eventually because it will not, like, can the mind not handle this? Can it not clear out this trauma from the body without you going bottom up essentially? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think talk therapy is great because it builds awareness. It builds awareness around things that happen to you, why you think the way that you do, maybe why you're showing up the way that you do. And that's a great place to start because it makes you more conscious of like, this makes sense why I'm feeling this way. This makes sense why I show up relationally this way based on what happened to me as a kid. But it doesn't really clear any of it. There's not really a ton of resolution. In order to have like repair and resolution, you need to go into the body and find out where on the somatic level, like what did that part of you experience and believe because of what happened. And you don't have to go into talking about it again or anything like that. Really, the gift is that you can go into whatever part of the body was holding on to that story and made you believe maybe you were wrong, you're not enough, you're not lovable, and you get to feel the pain of that, which opens you up to the opposite. Like I'm a firm believer in being able to toggle between polarities. I do a lot of like polarity work with people. So toggling between fear and love or toggling between feeling closed and open. When you really allow yourself to fully feel the experience of an emotion, you open yourself up to the polar opposite emotion too. It creates so much range and spaciousness in your system. That is why I believe somatics is so transformational and will get you so much further than just talking about it because you don't have to even talk about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to touch on that really deeply just for like everyone, like the audience, because that was like one of the biggest things that I experienced and learned myself is this phrase, you got to feel it to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also done talk therapy, and it's really great for a lot of different things. It's like a different kind of tool. It's like a screwdriver.
Totally.
This is like something different, you know? And I feel like our common culture right now essentially does not really explore somatics as much as it does talk therapy. Like talk therapy is very well known compared to somatics. Like I didn't know it existed until the last maybe like few years at best, maybe a year or two ago. I learned about it myself. It's just not something people talk about. If you had to explain to a 12-year-old how trauma gets created and needs to be released like from their body, like how would you let them know like what's going on in their body and why this is important?
Yeah, that's a great question. Especially since I have kids, it's a great thing to think about. Trauma, it's not what happens, it's how your body interprets what happens. So it's different for everyone, right? So everyone experiences trauma differently. That's why, there's like big things that happen or small things that happen. And when you're very, very sensitive, there can be little miscommunications or little things that happen in your life that feel so, so big that impact us because it's not what happens that causes the trauma. It's what we make ourselves believe about ourselves because of them. So if something bad or wrong happens to you, it's the feeling that you are bad or wrong that we end up holding onto within our bodies that causes the trauma. It's not the actual experience. So in order to like repair that with ourselves and release it, we can remind ourselves that yes, even though this terrible thing happened to us right now in this moment, it's not happening and I am safe and it's safe for me to feel. It's safe for me to feel all the icky stuff and all the bad stuff that it made me believe, but that doesn't mean that it's true. What's actually true is no matter what happens to me, I am good. And no matter what happens to me, I am not wrong or bad. Because bad things can happen to us. It doesn't make us bad.
Well, thank you. It was beautiful. I think it's really amazing. It kind of touches on another point that comes to mind for me of how the spiritual community, sometimes you're supposed to be high vibrational. And what that means is sort of being like this idea, at least for some people, that you always have to be feeling good and happy and that you shouldn't be feeling these other feelings because it might make you like, it might drop your vibration is like what I've heard many people believe.
Yeah.
So
toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity. Thank you. So from that, like when you are feeling these, how does one feel through this? Like, is there a risk of like re-traumatizing someone from going back to a feeling, or what do you usually see with your clients? I'm just curious how this works.
Yeah. So there's a lot there. So the risk of re-traumatizing, yes and no. you want to work with someone, and you want to work with someone that you feel safe, that knows how to actually work with trauma. And if you go slow enough, then there is no risk, because the whole point is to open your system up, which means as slow going as slow as the slowest part of you. So finding the part of you, or the part of your body, that has the most resistance to healing, the most resistance to change and to working with what's coming up, and not going any faster than that part. So when there's slowness and there's pacing and there's titration, there shouldn't be a risk of being re-traumatized when you're going too quickly and you're trying to get to an outcome and you're really like obsessive with things needing to change. And the way that I work with people too is, it's like nothing has to change. We don't have to get anywhere at all. Like, this is for you. The whole point and the whole goal is just for you to feel safer in your body. And if we can get 1% safer in our bodies, like, that's a win. So just being able to fully inhabit more of our body and more of what we're experiencing, and just having like 1 tiny% more of safety and relief, can bring a lot of shifts for someone. What was the other part of your question?
I don't think there was another part. If there is, I forgot it. So,
Okay, cool.
so someone listening to me like, Jimmy, there was another part. If you could give me an example, or what's an example of not feeling safe in our body, or a sign that we probably need some of this somatic work because we're holding on to something? Because I think a lot of people don't know what that feels like inside them.
Totally. And I was just talking about
it.
this yesterday too, how when I first started with this work, it's like, get in your body, like the term get in your body, just be in your body. Like for me, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, I don't know how to be in my body, because I'm like, okay, I have a body. Like, am I doing it? But like, so what can happen is there's different responses. I'll use a personal one. So like for me, let's say if I like grew up and there was loud yelling, and that didn't feel safe for me, I would leave my body a little bit, or like disassociate, because that felt safer than staying in my body while there were like loud noises and different sensory disruptions. So that can show up as an adult. Like, let's say I'm out at a live music show, and all of a sudden I hear loud noises that like remind me of being a kid, and maybe parents were arguing very loudly. And then all of a sudden I'm no longer present and able to watch the live music, because I've disassociated a little bit and I've left my body because I'm not feeling safe. So that's an example of how, like, in the present, like, past things can trigger you back to the past. And to really bring yourself back into that, it's really telling yourself, okay, I'm safe right now. I can take a deep breath. This is why breath is so important. So locating where your breath is at in your body and just noticing it. Like, I'm inhaling through my nose. I'm exhaling out my mouth. I can feel my feet on the ground. This is my shoulder. These are my hands. Like, it's very, very simple. Doing things like this can bring you back into your body, and it tells your system, like, okay, I'm a human. I am safe, and it's safe to be in this body. Like, yes, loud noises used to be very unsafe. And right now, the loud noises are actually something I chose to be at that are actually very pleasurable. So I'm going to be present here now with this because I am safe. It is not the same situation for me.
Through breath work specifically is how these get released. Do things like tremoring and TRE, like, what are your thoughts on those in terms of a somatic practice to release trauma from the system?
Yeah, I think shaking is great. So there's 3 ways to move energy. It's breath, sound, and movement. So if you want to really amplify the experience, you can do all of those. So inhaling, exhaling with sound, and then if I want to add movement, it's So breath, sound, movement moves energy. So when you combine those 3 things, it's really going to release energy. But if you look at animals, even how animals experience a trauma, they immediately like shake it off and then they're fine. We just don't have enough awareness around the tools to shake things off yet. We're having to remember, and we're having to retrain ourselves, and we're having to support other people with that. There's also a lot of other differences, obviously, between us and animals as well. But it's really the emotional experience that we're having with whatever is right in front of us that binds us to that feeling and creates a little bit of trauma or like stickiness and blocks us. So when we can allow our emotional experience to be met in the moment, like, oh, I'm feeling this and I'm safe. Let me take a breath. What kind of sound would that make? Would that feeling make? And adding in a little bit of movement too. And we can do this throughout the day. It just allows our system to be more open and spacious no matter what we're experiencing.
Wow, this is really cool. Because I feel like there's so much stuff online and like so many different methods and ways. I wanted to open up a space for you and invite you right now. If you could like just shout at the top of your lungs, be like, this is wrong, or this is something you completely disagree with. This is a myth that you see that's spread a lot on the internet, like misinformation about somatics or about
Mm-hmm.
anything that you kind of cover in sexology as well. Like, what would that be? Like, what's something that you just want to like let people know
That we're
this needs to be
supposed to be
different?
regulated. We're supposed to be regulated, that the goal is to be regulated. I do not believe in that at all. If that's truly the goal, we will always be repressing and suppressing things that we actually need to feel and experience. So oftentimes, like a lot of people get into this work, breath work, somatics, and they're doing the practices to try and become regulated instead of allowing their system to become activated. Let's say you become frustrated, angry, anything like that. Instead of allowing that to fully circle and complete in your system, we're trying so hard to bring it down. And that's not great for our bodies because now we're holding it in our bodies. It doesn't go away. So the goal isn't to be regulated. The goal is to have a full range within your body and your system to be able to move from sympathetic, parasympathetic, and to complete the cycle. So yes, I'm regulated. And then let's say something really pisses me off and I'm angry, but I need to stay regulated. So I'm going to shove it down. I'm going to do my breath work practice and like I'm regulated. Okay. So no, I'm fine. Actually, that's still within you. So a better option would be, okay, I'm feeling angry. I'm not going to shove this down. I'm going to scream into a pillow. I'm going to punch a pillow. I'm going to scream very loudly. Maybe it's not even that big. Maybe it's just like, I'm going to let a sound out, or I'm going to clench my fists and I'm going to shake it out. But really honoring the feeling and honoring whatever instinct is coming up within you, because what we start to do when we're trying to stay so regulated is we're shutting off our intuition and we're shutting off our instincts. Like there are no bad emotions. There are no bad feelings. It's not a bad thing to become activated. It's okay to be activated. There's wisdom in all of it. But if we're constantly trying to be calm and regulated, we are missing out on so much of the human experience and so much of like the signal that our body is trying to communicate to us.
Wow, that's a big one because I feel like that is what most people say is that you want to downshift yourself whenever you're feeling agitated and you want to be out of that place essentially as quickly as
Totally.
possible.
And there's appropriateness as far as like if I'm with my kids and I get super angry, that's probably not the moment for me to go into like an anger release. So maybe I will down regulate. But like I'm going to set aside time later when it's safe and appropriate for me to revisit that because otherwise it's going to stay in my system. So,
Mm.
there's appropriate space and time to allow yourself to have the full experience of what needs to be felt, what needs to be released, what needs to be handled. And I think that just comes with emotional maturity and somatic maturity of understanding what's happening in your body and also like environment, what's happening around me.
I have a question. So this is a practice that I normally do is if I am feeling an emotion, I kind of treat them like they're like little messages, like a little messenger kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I will just shine like an inner flashlight inside myself and just like look at it sort of and like feel that through. Is that effective for fooling going through the whole loop, or do I still need to go back and shake it out later or release some kind of sound or do a little bit more outside of just that observation?
It totally depends. I would say that that's bringing awareness to the emotion. As long as you're feeling it, really allowing yourself to feel it, you're going to be completing it. So as long as you're not just like, I'm bringing the flashlight and I'm aware that I'm really sad and it's stopping there, as long as you're actually allowing yourself to feel the sadness as well, that's going to complete the circle.
Okay, so it's not intellectualizing it and it's
Mm-mm.
allowing your body to just literally feel the sensations of whatever
Mhm.
that is until it
Yeah.
flutters away or whatever it does.
Yeah. And a really good practice is, okay, like let's say the emotion is sadness. Like you shine the flashlight and you found the sadness. It's like, okay, if the sadness had a voice, what would the sadness say?
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, it's a cool practice. We do something similar to that in hypnotherapy, where it's kind of like we take the form of the feeling itself and speak
Mm,
as if we are it.
yeah,
And it sounds like a very similar practice, which I think is
totally.
amazing because the things that come out from these conversations are unbelievable. Like, what are some things that kind of come out like when you embody the voice like that you've seen with your clients that you're kind of like, wow, it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, oftentimes, I mean, it's never what you expect, right? Because it's what we're dealing with too is a little bit of shadow. Like it's things that are oftentimes like hidden and the emotions are not really at the forefront. So you're giving those parts of yourself a space to like fully express unapologetically, sometimes very unhinged. Oftentimes, like I'll have clients that say things that are like totally off the wall, incredibly appropriate, but for them, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that even just came out of my mouth. But when they do, it feels so good and it feels so clear because they're connected to truth. And it's a really beautiful practice too, to be able to start having more honest, hard conversations relationally with people in your day to day life because no matter what comes out, no matter what you're sharing, as long as it's true, you're going to feel clear, you're going to feel connected, you're going to feel calm, and that's not going to lead you astray.
Okay, very cool. Could we switch over the conversation to a little spiciness with your sexology work?
Totally.
And because it's kind of a taboo space that not a lot of people want to talk about. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about what is appropriate for men and women. I would love for
Mhm.
you to like just share what your findings are and what you wish more people knew about sex and intimacy and trauma that might be living in their bodies and holding them back.
Totally. Yeah. Well, on some level, all like men and women, we all have some type of sexual trauma that we're holding, whether it's just conditioning or something that happened. Like most of us learned at a very young age. Like if you think about like your views on sex, what you believe about sex, what sex means to you, at one point or another, something that is not you influenced those beliefs, right? Just like anything else. And another thing too is it's what I've found is it's really challenging for both men and women to be embodied during sex and not in their head. Not in their head as far as like, oh my gosh, what are they thinking of me? Oh my gosh, does this feel good for them? I don't know if this feels good for me. And when we do that, it cuts off the experience, which should be more embodied and open. And oftentimes I work mainly with women for the sexological piece. I'll work with couples. I don't do sexological body work with couples or men. But with women, it's really reorienting themselves to feel safe and relaxed and open and repatterning them to have an experience where their pleasure is their own. Because for the longest time, women's pleasure and women's sexuality in the culture that we live in has been a thing that's for men. Like it hasn't been for them. So I work with a lot of women where they're able to repattern the experience of, wow, I get to be so open and relaxed and safe in my own body, and my pleasure gets to be mine first, which creates so much safety in relationship and in sexual containers for whatever, wherever they're at with themselves, for that to then be a gift and an offering versus an obligation or something that's for the other person. And the beautiful thing in that too is that that feels really good for men as well. Because for men, if you're connecting sexually with a woman who doesn't feel safe, a woman who feels closed off, a woman who doesn't feel embodied and free to express themselves sexually, he's going to be tracking that. And whether or not he knows it consciously or not, he's going to be in his head trying to figure out what to do to either, hopefully, try and make her feel safe and relaxed and open versus her just starting there. And she can start there first and foremost on her own and also communicate her own needs and her own desires. It makes it a little bit easier for the masculine too to show up in that container and to lead and hold that for her. So I work with a lot of women who their own needs, their own desires around sex, around creativity, around their bodies were shamed or were not okay or were just taken away. Like their sovereignty was just taken away one way or another if they experience sexual trauma. So the goal is to really go into those spaces and open and heal and create more safety so that they can just come back to the wholeness of what it is being alive in their body themselves.
Yeah. So I hear this kind of relating back to what you said earlier about when our body doesn't feel safe, we disassociate. So in sex, it sounds like when we don't feel safe in our bodies fully, we are in our minds thinking about them, thinking about, performance and all of those things. And I can actually relate quite a bit to it myself, actually, because I went through this whole cycle of constantly wondering if my partner was enjoying it for
Totally.
decades.
It's a
And
big one for men.
it's not, it really took the fun out of sex for me. I want to say, like, for a really, really long time. It wasn't until the last maybe like year or so that I'm like really, really enjoying like the act of sex. And it took going through this work and like getting comfortable with sex. And I love the work that you're doing, honestly. I think it's really not enough people are exploring this because maybe they don't know about it, or maybe they don't realize that anything's wrong, because there's such a huge culture around porn.
And porn and around people being in long-term relationships and sex just like kind of fizzling out. And then there's a lot of stereotypes around like, men always want to have sex and women don't, or, all of these things we're conditioned to believe that just like actually really are not true at all. Like when it comes down to it, like when women are very like embodied and open and relaxed, women likely want to have sex more than men. It's just true. But I think too, there's a lot that we can learn around even just owning our own needs and our own desires and openly communicating them. Because it's very simple to be like, what do you need to feel safe? What feels really good for you? Where on your body do you like to be touched? Where do you not like to be touched? Yeah, and going slow. Going slow is with everything is a really big one. Having these open conversations, my hope is that that gets to be the norm, but those are the things that are holding us back from having more embodied, deep, intentional, intimate experiences is all the conversations that we're avoiding.
Yeah, it's honestly, I feel like I'm going to speak for myself. Sex is such an amazing tool for connection, really. And to say that it's going to fizzle out over time, like that means that you're losing a part of connection to your partner that you say that you want to spend your whole life with. But like once you lose that piece of connection, it's quite detrimental. If you could have 10 mythbusters right now, what would be some like mythbusters, since you mentioned them, that people think, yeah, about like you named a few just now, and I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting, because I think a lot of people like don't know that they are living in a myth,
Totally. So women want to have sex just as much as men do, if not more. That's one. There's also a lot of men that are much more like sensual and in nature than just like sexual, like just wanting to have sex. There's a lot of men that actually need a lot of like slowness and pacing. There's a lot of women also that are the opposite, that are just like super sexual, that don't need slowness and pacing. Everyone is different. I would say too that another myth, it's possible to be in a monogamous long-term relationship and have the sex get better and better and better. It does not have to die. It does not have to fizzle out.
Wow.
I also think too, scheduling sex does not take the magic away from sex. I also think like spacious, spontaneous sex is also very magical. It's all these different like confines and boxes that we put around it that make it not feel so great. It's also a really beautiful way to connect with your partner and yourself, to like just foreplay and not even have sex. Like that's possible too, and that's amazing.
These are great. These are great.
I think there's a million ways also to do relationship. I orient as a heterosexual female that is monogamous, and I coach a lot of people that are in open relating or poly. I've helped people that have been married for 40 years open up the container and go poly. There's no wrong way to do it as long as it's supportive for everyone that's in the container. I think that's a really big one. It's a lot of people are very black and white, or looking how everyone else is doing relationship. Oh, they're doing this. Like maybe we should try that, or that'll work for me. And it's like, you have to find what works for you, and not just you, but the container that you're in. So not just you and not just your partner, but the energy that's created, or partners, the energy that's created in that container, what's going to work for that? And looking around and seeing what everybody else is doing, like maybe it's inspiring, maybe it's good information, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you.
Yeah, we're all so different. And I think another thing is sometimes these tools that are really healthy for one person could be trauma or avoidance for another person, where
Totally.
it's a tool where they're using it to get away from trauma or to avoid something that they don't want to feel, like
Totally.
maybe commitment or something along those lines.
Totally. And that's why, there's a beautiful thing around open relating and poly. And I think if you do it in a very conscious way, for some people, that's really liberating and it's conscious and it's opening. And for other people, it's avoidance. And it's the same with monogamy, though. There's people that choose monogamy, and for some people, that's very liberating and opening. And for other people, it's avoidance. There's people that choose to stay in a relationship because they're avoiding who they need to become by leaving that relationship. It's totally individual and based on where you're at and where it is that you need to go.
Yeah, I've also experienced it's like a feeling of people pleasing sort of by being in a monogamous relationship because you want it to work because maybe the other person wants that also, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
that can not feel too great. And I think it comes back to what you said, was like feeling your body, because that's
Mm-hmm.
where the information comes from of like, hey, this doesn't feel good.
Yeah, what's true for you is really like maybe this is what somebody else wants, or this is what other people are doing, and maybe this worked for me in the past. That's a big one. Is like, but this has worked for me for so long, so like why wouldn't it work for me now? But like what's actually real and true for you now? And like where is your desire leading you?
No, it's a tricky question because like we grow and change so much. Like two
So
people,
much. It's the whole point.
I think about people who get married when they're like maybe in their early 20s or like in their teens, and there's so much growth and change that's happening for both people, like on the journey. It's magic when I see like people who were like high school sweethearts that are still like really just doing fantastic from at least from the outside as they go
Yeah.
further in life.
Yeah, and if they're really, doing it and growing and changing, like they go through those, relationships go through like death and rebirth cycles over and over again, sometimes together with that person, and sometimes just you have to hold space for the other person to do that while you're not necessarily growing and changing at the same time. It's very, very complex.
Yeah. I think it's also really enjoyable and interesting because there's something nice about someone changing and every day coming back to them and being like, hey, who are you now? It keeps it, for me, it's very
Totally.
interesting. Yeah. That they
Well,
evolve,
and
that they
that's
aren't exactly the same.
yeah, when you can lead with curiosity like that, that's what allows the relationship, I think, to stay alive.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. So you mentioned sexology body work earlier.
Mhm.
What does that look like in practice for someone who's never experienced it? Like what would actually happen in a session that like they would go through, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I typically start with this is just for women that I work with. It's we're finding any tension in the body, wherever it is, and they're on a massage table. I have them breathing and sounding the whole time. So it's basically like a 3-hour session where they're doing breath work, they're sounding, and we're moving energy. It's very energetic. So we're finding any tension or trauma in the system, and the whole goal is to unwind that, to reorient their body and their system to feel safe experiencing more pleasure. Not necessarily
Mm.
pleasure in the sense of orgasm, but just how much pleasure can you hold in your body on your own safely? That's the whole goal. And then further down the line, too, there's more of orgasm can be possible. There's external work, there's internal work as well. But it's really the whole goal is to oscillate between pain in the body and tension and pleasure. So it's how can I safely experience this pain knowing that pleasure is also possible?
If there is like, let's say sexual trauma, is it usually just in their like sexual parts, or can it actually be other places in their body
Oh,
where
it can be.
wow, interesting. And does this manifest as like a pain, or like what does it feel like to feel this?
So a lot of times for women, it's the voice. So a lot of times for women with sexual trauma, it's not feeling like they had a voice. So it can show up here. And so it's work around voicing their needs, voicing their desires, and also reclaiming their no, like really reclaiming their no and what they are not going to tolerate so that they can open up more to what they're a yes for. And then there's a lot of like womb stuff for sure. And then heart stuff. I would say like those are the three places that we mostly hold.
Thank you for that. For, I guess, just with the time that we have, I want to make sure we talk about how you bring in astrology into this. What can astrology reveal to someone about like maybe their intimacy patterns or other parts of their life that they're not aware of that you also incorporate into your practice that you think is important for people to know?
Totally. Yeah. So with astrology, when I do an astrology reading, I'm looking at from an evolutionary perspective, I'm starting looking at their north node and their south node. Their south node is all of their past lives, things that they've mastered, things that they've come into this life, like really knowing and understanding. It's comfortable, it's familiar, but it's also holding them back. And it's also part of like the shadow. And the north node is the trajectory of what their soul came here to learn and grow into. And it's more uncomfortable. It's new. It's something they've never experienced. So I can see that on the chart and see the energy of it and what's going to be supportive for them to move into that. And this all is obviously relational because those two are going to show up first and foremost in your most intimate relationships because that's where all of our mirrors are. And so after I do a reading, the second thing I usually do with them is like an embodiment of their chart. So what do they really need to let go of? South node stuff in order to really embody the north node stuff in this lifetime and on this journey now. Like what's more of an edge for them?
With astrology, what are your thoughts on like the ideas of free will and choice? If astrology is sort of a predictor of how we're supposed to be, does that kind of box us into a certain like identity essentially? And
It
how does that
can if
play
you
in?
use it. Yeah, if you use it that way. I don't use it as like a prediction, like fortune teller, crystal ball situation. Astrology can predict like collective energies. The way that you're going to experience is going to be totally individual and based on like how things affect your chart. Certain transits for sure can predict like certain energies, but it's not ever necessarily 100% because you are a conscious being that has free will. And regardless of what's happening in your chart, you do have choice. But you don't get to ignore like the very clear blueprint patterns that are there and showing up. And those energies are present regardless. How you choose, it's a map, right? So how you choose to move through the map and how you choose to move through the world is still totally up to you. And there's likely going to be these energies at play regardless of how you choose to move through the world.
Okay. And so if you're working with a client, let's say, like what does that look like in terms of when does the astrology come into the picture where it's like important for them to do that work versus do like the somatic body work or sexology body work?
So it's totally individual. Like I have a bodywork session with a client tomorrow. I've never done an astrology reading on. I have people I've only done astrology readings on. I have a client I worked with for like 3 years that just got her first astrology reading and embodiment session. It's not crucial to do it at any certain point in time. I like everything to be like client led. So when are you instinctually guided to feel like, when are you feeling like you want to have an astrology reading? Because not everyone needs to start there. Like if you're not feeling called to, like that's not going to be great for either of us. I don't want to sit there for 90 minutes and give you a birth chart reading if you don't want it, but like
Yeah.
if you're interested in some of these other things, like let's start there. And typically, at one point or another, someone will come back and be like, okay, now I'm ready. But I'm really all about like slowness and having the client lead and choose because I want them to have full choice, full sovereignty, and being connected to their own instincts and their own intuition so that that's how they're able to move through the world. I want them to start that with me and feel safe doing that with me so that they can start doing that everywhere.
Well, so just as an example, with a client that you've actually done this astrology like reading with, what was there before and after? Like, how did you actually help them solve a real world problem essentially using the astrology chart? I think
Yeah.
everyone, like the audience, would love to hear this.
Yeah, so I have a client that I've worked with for a few years now, and we just did an astrology reading a few months ago. And so I've known her for a very long time. We've done a lot of work. And then the astrology reading really revealed that her soul is really here to have like authority and power within her voice. And she's been working in journalism and doing all these things, but she's not really feeling passionate there. And she doesn't really feel like her opinions and her beliefs and her voice really matters. And so that's more of her south node would be like staying in that situation. So after I did the astrology reading with her, and I'm like, well, you have your North Node in Aries in the third house, which is very like third house is all communication. Aries is very like fiery, passionate leadership. Like you are meant to speak and you are meant to speak with fire and passion about what you really care about. So now she's on the trajectory of like, okay, I need to really find a safe space where I can use that and that is really valued. So it just kind of, it double clicked in on all of the work that we had and pushed her on the trajectory to kind of take action a little bit quicker towards what it is that she actually really wants. And it also is really validating as far as like, that makes sense that this path doesn't feel as good, but it feels familiar, but it doesn't really feel me. And it makes sense that this one feels more me, but it feels less comfortable to shift into.
Wow. So this seems pretty tactical. What do you feel about people who say that, astrology charts it can be applied to anyone and it can be relatable to anyone essentially. And that's the gimmick of it. What would you respond to those who are naysayers in that way?
Well, the thing is, you came into this world at a very specific time in a very specific place in the world, and the stars were very specifically aligned, and the planets were very specifically aligned. Like everyone's is so unique and so just theirs. So yes, it can be applied to anyone, but yours is so specific just to you that I think it would be unfortunate to not take advantage of that as a tool. Like if you think about it, like our soul chose our specific parents for whatever reason to come into this world at such a specific time and at such a specific place with all of the collective energy in the planets aligned so specifically. Not any two people are going to have exactly the same exact thing. So it can be applied to absolutely anyone, but your chart is going to be unique to you.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because at the end of the day, trying something new that can have a significant positive impact on your life, regardless of how it works or whatever, like I don't it's shocking to me a lot that like so many people wouldn't even try it. And it's the same with
Totally.
sexology, but like there's so many things that people just don't want to even try and they have an opinion about it, even though they've never tried it, which is really interesting to me. So yeah, thanks for saying that.
Totally. Yeah. It's just like anything else though. That's how it is with a lot of things, I think. It's edgier in to try something new sometimes.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's a familiarity of what, and sometimes things that make us feel uncomfortable, things that are unknown, or maybe a lot of people say bad things about it, like we don't want to try that.
And there's also a lot of content and a lot of material that also just like is not great. The same in like the coaching
Oh.
world. There's a lot of that too, like how I mentioned with like the regulation stuff. Like there is information out there that's just not great information. So like that's true too.
Yeah, honestly, before I became a coach and experienced, I went to a coach at one point. I thought coaching was a scam because that's what everyone said. Yeah, everyone's like coaches are a scam. Like they aren't certified. Like they're just like pretend therapists. And I actually went to a coach just by chance for the first time. Like I just gave it a chance, gave it a shot and try. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it. Changed my life. And then I became a coach myself, and I'm like, oh my god, this shit's great.
You're like maybe it is a scam, but I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, no, I literally was like, it was a feeling that I started feeling my feelings more fully at this point in my life. And I was like, oh, this feels really good. I'm just going to go for it. And I went for it and literally changed my life. It showed me things about myself that I never knew. And I had done years of talk therapy, read so many books, did all the things. And that's what led me to become a coach myself, which is a very similar story to you, actually. It's like I was working at a 9 to 5, very good, like corporate tech job. And I was like, no, this isn't it. And
I love that.
taking a step away.
Way to take a chance.
Yeah. Can I ask you one last question?
Mm-hmm.
What would be a protocol that you would recommend to anyone to do on a regular basis in order to process their trauma so that they can live a happier life? Like, what is something that they can tactically do on their own if they
Journal.
are also holding trauma?
Journal.
Journal.
I would say journal.
Really?
If it's you on your own and you're not having support from somebody else, I would recommend journaling at night and connecting to the parts of yourself that feel broken.
Hmm.
And, you know, I mentioned this journal prompt yesterday too, when you have like the not enoughness wound. A good journal prompt is, when will I finally allow myself to feel like I'm enough? Like, when will enough be enough? When will I finally be enough? And you just journal, journal, journal. Journal is a very somatic experience. Like, you're likely, as you're writing, going to have stuff come up. So it's really beautiful. Yeah, I would say start there. Journaling has been such a profound self-reflection tool and healing tool for me. And it's so easy and it's so free.
Wow. Okay. So just to run it back for what I'm hearing, and I'm going to add a little bit of what I'm hearing also from my own mind. So journaling, so you can like just allow your mind to go through the things that you might have been avoiding essentially. And in the process of your mind going through this, your mind is triggering feelings. Like if you think about something scary, you're going to feel scared, right? So you're thinking about all these things. And then your job then is to sit there and just feel, just be in your body as much as you can through this process and just keep doing that. And that's a
Totally.
really great daily practice.
Yeah. And for people that have a hard time sitting in their feelings, go and write about it. Right now, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this in my stomach. This feels this way. And just keep journaling, stream of consciousness, like whatever comes out.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. Can I ask you, I said I think I might have lied. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
Promise is the last one. This is so good, by
You're
the way.
so
I have
good.
so many. These are, you're doing so great. So the last question is, if people were to do this work, how do you think this would help transcend and change the world in a meaningful way?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're only one person, right? So, if we want to change the world, I think the best way is to first change ourselves and focus on ourselves. But we forget the ripple effect that that has. So, like, all the work that I've done, regardless, like, my parents have not been in the work, but it's affected them. It's created so much more connection in my relationships with them, my relationships with my kids, my relationships with my kids' dad, my partner, my friends, my community. Like, the work that you choose to do on yourself ripples through every place in the world that you touch, every other person that you connect with.
Well, that's a beautiful answer. It's really a butterfly effect, really a ripple effect. It's one drop of water, it feels like, but it hits the water and it just ripples out and it never stops. And
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that, because I feel like in the space of sexuality, somatic work, trauma, there's a lot of people hurting people a little bit, essentially.
Yeah.
And it comes from their own pain, which I understand a lot. So
Yeah.
there is so much more that I know that we could probably talk about. And it's been so easy and fun to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a place that's the audience can go to keep up with you and talk to you more, or like learn about what you're doing
Yeah,
online?
so I'm pretty connected to Instagram. My Instagram handle is at the Cosmic Mistress. I also have my own podcast. It's called the Cosmic Mistress Podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. And then my website is www.amandafrederick.com. Those are the places that I hang out the most. If anybody wants to chat, feel free to send me a DM. If you have any questions, I'd love to connect.
Okay. Thank you so much. Because everything we've talked about today really feels like it's the heart of what the show is about. It's conversations that where there's no perfect answer necessarily sometimes also. And it's opening this doorway that feels like it was closed for so long for so many people. And it's allowed us to really question what we've been taught about healing, love, relationships, purpose, the body, and even like the universe a little bit with like what we talk about with astrology as well. So, and at the end of the day, I think we all just really want to become more alive. So,
Totally.
yeah. So for everyone listening, watching, if this episode with Amanda sparked something in you, you can follow the show. You can share more about it with someone who would really enjoy this conversation or needs to know this information about like what Amanda is talking about, and come back for the next one, because we'll have a whole season where we're going to be keeping up with exploring the edges of what is possible in our bodies and relationships, in our consciousness, and in the world that we're here to create all together. So thanks, Amanda, so much for being here. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy. This was so fun.
Cool. Awesome. Talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.